This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are.
And welcome to another edition of I Love Black People. We've been blessed to have someone who's contributed so much to our shows, to our movement, and actually got me involved in my Zimbabwe movement and introduced me to partners and businesses. I mean, so this person means a lot to me. And so me sharing him with you is I might not want to share him. I wanted to keep him all to myself, but yeah, he's too big to share for me to take on myself. So I just wanted to say, welcome, good brother Obi Egbuna, to the show. Please reintroduce yourself and what you're working on, and so we can get down of what's going on in your world. Thank you again, though, for showing up.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here. My name is Obi Egbuna Jr. I'm an African history teacher. I'm a journalist. I'm a children's playwright. And today we will be talking about the latest offering from the Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company, which I had the honor to be a co-founder of 11 years ago. And at the beginning of this month, as a post-Day of the African Child event, we did a play called Ready for the Revolution, which was paying tribute to the leader of the Guinean Revolution and Guinea's first president, Ahmed Sekou Touré, who was the president from 1958 to 1984, and the woman who led the sisters in that heroic struggle to liberate the country from the shackles of French colonialism, Mbalia Kamara. So
Okay.
we did it.
So then listen now, look, you just dropped, like I said, every inch, every moment, every second is going to be compacted with so much information. Now, the mass emphasis, I think it would be very helpful to our listeners to understand what led to that and how did you get there, just to give us a context of how do you talk about Black history, being a journalist, and being a playwright. Like, to you, as somebody who's, again, coming out of our, and God bless you, and father. We didn't put father, we got father in the background. So literally, to have all those pieces, how does playwright and how does math emphasis, how does that become a logical connection between being a journalist?
Oh, okay, sure. Well, once you gain the ability to utilize the pen, there's so many facets and dimensions to it. So that explains the correlation between journalism and playwriting. And following the example of Shirley Graham Du Bois, who is the first woman in U.S. history to write an opera called Tom Toms, putting our history in opera form. And of course, she's one of the preeminent journalists of the 20th century. So inspired by people like that. So always paying attention to the impact of the Harlem Renaissance, always paying attention to the impact of the Black Arts Movement, and paying attention to the anti-colonial Renaissance, which was part of the anti-colonial movement in Africa, which Guinea championed. So, but in terms of our relationship to children's playwriting, it came from always challenging yourself to make sure that our children are thoroughly engaged and qualitatively engaged and happily engaged. So sometimes we don't like to challenge ourselves to be more engaging as possible, and at the same time not compromise on the substance. So when we thought about playwriting as a medium to introduce children to, it filled all those blanks in. They would be excited. They wouldn't just be stationary. They'd be moving around. And at the same time, they'd be absorbing some very quality information. So what happened was that's how we started 11 years ago.
So, does that mean, I'm sorry, so does that mean when you talk about the education part and you talk about the communication that you do through journalism, when I think of playwright, and I think with many folks, we think of Hollywood, we think of New York, we think of Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
we think about like the brain that does, I'm an African history teacher, and the brain that does, I'm on stage. You just said it, and again, I think you really did explain. Like, so if I don't say if I say you didn't explain, I'm lying because you actually did explain. But
Mm.
man, it just seems like what it takes to stand before children or anyone and explain or teach them something, and literally telling people stage left, stage right, and you sing and you dance, and here's your script, and here are your lines. Come in here, you say it like this, stand over here. Is the costume right? Like, how does come on, man? You're making it seem like this is like making breakfast, bro. 2 eggs over easy. No, it's not.
Well, okay. I guess 27 plays in 11 years and 31 productions to our name. Maybe that's the reason I sound, but it's a testament to the discipline of the children, and the enthusiasm of the children. And there are different things we do. So, for example, to get them ready for this last play and to watch to make them deal with um, concentration, to make them, and remember, these are virtual productions based on the current reality. So we had them watch Raisin in the Sun. And from them watching Raisin in the Sun and studying the movements, the angling, the expression, the tone. So there's that, you have that aspect of it. And then sometimes you have to work with them one-on-one. And then incorporating different aspects into the play, things that they may have a passion for naturally. So in this particular play, we had two poems. One is called Ready for the Revolution, in harmony with the theme of the play, and then another one called Mother of the Nation, about Mbalia Kamara. So we had some children in Canada who are French speaking and Arabic speaking. So they recited the poems in French and Arabic. And since they are fluent in those languages, it wasn't hard to get them to concentrate. So you took advantage of their linguistic background. Um, I have a student who I've taught for 8 years, Ayana Benjamin, who just came to me and said, "Brother, I don't want to act anymore in the plays, but what I want to do is draw. And I'm going to draw pictures in harmony with the theme of the play." And she drew a picture of Acme Sekou and Mbalia Kamara you would not believe in 24 hours. And she said from now on, that's what she wants to do. So we have children who dance. And for the first time, we now have a dance choreographer, we hope, moving forward. But Antonia White, DC born and raised, who did an excellent job with them. So we had some children walking on stilts. We had some children doing some ballet, because if you know Guinea's history, Guinea has the distinction of being the first African nation to tell their story to the world in the form of a ballet, following the example of China, following the example of the Soviet Union, following the example of Cuba. So because you have children that dance, you can infuse that into it. So it's a combination of paying attention to the attributes, talents, and desires that the children already have before they work with you, and then looking at how you can creatively infuse that into the process so that they feel empowered while they're making their contribution to the process.
Wow, wow. I'm picking up what you're putting down. So tell us more, brother. I mean, I think the way you just kind of captured empowering our young people, how you're connecting the value of what they have to offer. And again,
Mhm.
one of the things you taught me about generational chauvinism, how every generation has something to contribute. We stand on everyone's shoulders. I think contextually, giving agency to young people, like the sister you said, who said her thing is she's gonna draw, and you said, "Cool, sister, draw." Like,
Mhm.
instead of no, 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 you're gonna go, and you like, look, what
Oh,
did you draw
mm-mm.
there?
Yeah. Then we had this beautiful brother, 29 years old. He's a band director in South Carolina, in the second poorest county. And he was interested in becoming involved in the process, but he's also a marching band director. So he took some students who would be considered between beginning and preparatory, and he put together a brass ensemble, Brother Sinclair, and those children played Guinea's national anthem. Then I have another student named Ayende Yutsi, who's 16 years old, who I've taught since he was 5. And he is an unbelievable drummer. And if you know anything about Guinea's history, Guinea introduced helped popularize drumming and dancing all over the world. And so he choreographed the drumming scene. So people got a chance to see ballet, dance, African dancing, uh, a brass ensemble. And when you think about that, if you're really into all forms of African music, whether you're into reggae, whether you're into R&B, whether you're into rock, whatever you like, whether you're into gospel, you notice in the last 40 years, the brass instrument has disappeared from many of our genres of music that we've contributed to the world. So to see a brass ensemble play Guinea's national anthem following a drum choreographed scene by a 16-year-old. So it just kept the audience guessing. And like I said, because we had, and then before our play, we had La Colmanita, who is for people who don't know, that's the National Children's Theatrical Ensemble in the Republic of Cuba. They performed. The Montanza Art School, world renowned in Cuba, where many Africans in Cuba are, Cuban-born Africans, they performed. And they had an orchestra that combines African drumming with string instruments. So people got a chance to see that. There was an ensemble out of Haiti who reenacted the call to arms by the spiritual medium Francois Macandal, who is just as important to the Haitian Revolution for people who know their history as Dessalines is, as Toussaint Louverture is, as Cecile Fatiman is. We then had some children in Burkina Faso do our play on Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president, and Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's first president. They did 4 scenes from that, so people got a chance to see that. There was a children's ensemble called Hidri, who is from representing the mighty people of Eritrea. And then you had the Cultural Academy for Excellence, which is some children out of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area that play steel pan music. And 2 of my students, a sister and brother, Aaron and Winona Majet, made that connection. So because we were doing this for the 30th anniversary of the Day of the African Child, for your listeners who may have been absorbed by Juneteenth, they may have forgotten or never knew that the Day of the African Child turned 30 this year. Since 1992, on the African continent, we have been rallying together to deal with the challenges that our children face. Medical challenges, economic challenges, social challenges, political challenges, whatever the case may be. And the African continent unanimously decided that June 16th should be the day we recognize. For your listeners who might not know, that was the day of the Soweto uprising, when teenagers in Soweto took to the streets at the height of apartheid because they were not allowed to learn African history in the classroom setting and could not speak the indigenous languages in the classroom setting. They could only speak the colonial imposed language called Afrikaans. So because of the fervor and fire in the belly of those children who fought in Soweto in 1976, that's why in 1992, we decided that that should be the date. You mentioned Zimbabwe. It's impossible for you and I to ever have a conversation on airwaves and not mention Zimbabwe. This is also the 30th anniversary of the passing of Amai Sali Mugabe, President Robert Mugabe's first wife, who is a national hero. She's Ghanaian born. In 1982, she organized an international conference in Harare dealing with the role of the child in the decolonization process. And she targeted children with leprosy, children with malaria, children with cholera, children with HIV/AIDS, children whose mothers had succumbed to prostitution during the colonial era. And she talked about, if we're going to redeem ourselves as a continent, we have to have some practical things in place for the children of Africa. So from that work, created the atmosphere after 10 years of continuing to strategize for the Day of the African Child. So it was no way as daughters and sons of Africa who just want to be good to our mother that we were going to let the 30th anniversary of the Day of the African Child go by and do nothing, offer nothing, contribute nothing. It also gave us a chance to pay attention to 2 other crucial things. Akme Sekou Touré is 100 years old this year. He was born January 9th, 1922. And Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah made his transition to the ancestors on April 27th, 1972. So this is the 50th, which means he lived 7 years longer than Brother Malcolm and 4 years longer than Dr. King. As we like to play around sometimes and say we have to treat our modern history, we have to say BML, like people do the Bible, ACBC. We almost are forced sometimes based on narrative to say BMLK, DMLK, AMLK. before Dr. King, during Dr. King, and after Dr. King. So since Osagyefo for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah transitioned after King, we feel that that is very relevant, especially in connection to the challenges that we're facing in Africa now. And we wanted to highlight Guinea because Guinea did so much for Africa, so much for Africa. And we'll use this opportunity, we'll use this conversation to contextualize all those things so people realize that they're the beneficiaries of things that they didn't even know, thanks to the people of Guinea and the revolution of Guinea.
So does that mean that the platform that you've been using to get the play circulated, is that something that people can have access to, or how can people, as you bring in?
And in the past, as you know, we've distributed a lot of our material, but this time we're going to be a little stingy, but for strategic reasons. We were told by several people that the program was of such high quality that we should organize screenings of it. So we're going to do that. So the fact that you have in one program 2 hours worth of children's activity capturing the brilliance of children in Eritrea, the African children in Haiti, African children in Cuba, African children in Burkina Faso, African children in Liberia, African children in Canada, African children in Trinidad, African children throughout the United States of America, all in one particular program. So we're going to, and like I said, we have the honor where we've been invited to facilitate the international portion of the famous National Black Theater Festival, our greatest honor as a theater company. So the first week of North Carolina, we'll be there thanks to our brother, Dr. James Pope, who teaches Africana Studies at Winston-Salem University. So we're going to be there. And from there, there's been interest in Guyana. There's been interest in Trinidad. There's been interest in Canada. There's been interest in Venezuela. There's been interest in Orlando, Florida. There's been interest in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to show this program.
It's 2 hours long?
Yes.
All right. So do y'all have like a sizzle? What do you call it? Sizzle reel? Do y'all
trailer?
Have like a trailer?
We're gonna make a trailer available to let people know, to see more. They can come to the National Black Theater Festival. So we definitely had a meeting the other day and we planned that, but we want to I think that
edit some of that down where it's the easier form. We could even give people like a little, just not enough for them to get it, but just enough to make them want to get it. So,
right, I understand exactly what you're saying, but just the same way, because I've helped promote the film Mugabe, Villain or Hero, which won the Pan-African Film Festival 10 years ago, that the great Ghanaian filmmaker Roy Ajimong did. So people, and he was one of the people, he was there that night and he saw it and he said, man, this is something that, people should see all over the world.
What was the Mugabe thing? Is that a movie or was that
Yeah, it was a movie. Brother Roy won the Pan-African Film Festival 8-9 years ago.
Is that on YouTube? Is it on?
It's on YouTube now. But we had organized showings of it in St. Louis, in Dallas, in Chicago, in Oakland, in Selma, in Philadelphia, and I'm missing some places, but we put it on a national tour like 9 years ago.
What was the name of it?
Mugabe, Villain or Hero.
Okay, God.
We'll introduce you to him. And so what we did in this particular instance, we asked people who we respect in terms of their craft to take a look at the quality of what we just offered. And once they saw it and they saw those dimensions to it, they were like, man, you can't just post this just yet. You should organize showings. Because remember, our goal is to do two things always. Number one, to recruit children and youth into the Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company, number one, but also to build strategic partnerships with children ensembles doing something very similar. So what that does is it gives them an opportunity to see how we approach working with children, what inspires us to work with children, and the type of content that we fearlessly introduce children to. So all those things fell into place that night and have been falling into place for a long time. And we're very comfortable in this medium now. And the last year and a half, we did our first children's play in another language, a Kiswahili play, which I believe I've shown to you. about 12, 13 minutes long, and it's called The Kiswahili Explosion. And it's about homeless children in Tanzania wanting to bring attention to the fact that there are 14 million homeless children in East Africa at the moment. And they wanted to use Kwanzaa, because our people embrace Swahili culture, to reach out to US born Africans who, even though we're 12% of the population, we're 43% of the homeless in North American borders. So we had a play to tackle that. And then we came back last year and did a play called The Sisters Touch on Struggle, which paid homage to the National Association of Colored Women, which was created in 1896. Among the founders were Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, Mary Church Terrell, Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, the first woman to start a newspaper, African woman to start a newspaper in North America called the Women's Era. The daughter of Frederick Douglass, Rosetta Douglass. These women came together in 1896. So for the record, the National Council of Negro Women is not our first women's organization to deal with our efforts to fight for our human dignity and liberation. So we did that play.
No, I think what you're also giving me is something that people sometimes don't understand. Again, and as a Pan-Africanist, I think it gets overlooked. But how you're able to intertwine our African diaspora experience, not just globally, geographically, but temporally, like throughout time, you're connected. And I think there's oftentimes people who, because of the time and distance, don't understand the connection. I still remember, when I would say black, you said, no, I'm an African. And of course, we're African. With that being said, just trying to connect and the understanding in the minds of people where we're living in a system of oppression, a system that's benefited from divide and conquer. We talk about white supremacist ideology, coming up with things that actually divide us. How are you able to help people see the connectedness of us as a people,
Mhm.
even though there are variations in our experiences over a few hundred years, as just opposed to thousands of years?
And and well, in this last play, that was extremely easy to do, because in 1961, Ahmed Sékou Touré expelled the Russian ambassador from Guinea because he felt that he was dogmatic and racist. And at the time, during the Cold War, Soviet Union, when they would approach liberation movements in Africa, if we didn't accept Marxism-Leninism as our ideology, they could be hostile, even though we were supposed to be in solidarity with each other. So he wasn't going to put up with that. So the United States saw that as an opportunity, a watershed moment. So John F. Kennedy sent Harry Belafonte to Guinea as an emissary of the U.S. Peace Corps. And he took some members of SNCC with him. He took John Lewis with him. He took Fannie Lou Hamer with him, and he took a few others. It was also done to divert attention away from Brother Malcolm's second trip to Africa. So it happened right after that. So what happened was, one of the agreements was that Guinea would allow their dancers and acrobats to come to the United States. And it is from that process that many of the African independent schools and others started to intensify their efforts to set up African dance and drumming ensembles. So in all actuality, in every dancing and drumming ensemble in this country, there should be pictures of three people: two sisters, Catherine Dunham, without question; Pearl Primus, without question. Pearl Primus was an African woman who was just as impactful with African dance and drum as Catherine Dunham was, and got the name Omawali in Nigeria 20 years before Brother Malcolm did. The name does not mean son who returns home, it means one who returns home. So she got the honor before Brother Malcolm, for people who didn't know that. But what Ahmed Sékou Touré did with the dancing and drumming in Guinea is nothing short of unbelievable. When we take a look at our resistance in the United States, and more people now, you have a professor who I know very well, friend, brother, out of Georgia State University, Dr. Akinele Umoja. He wrote a book called They Shoot Back, and he was talking about Robert Williams and RAM, and he was talking about the BLA, and he was talking about others who decided to take up arms, what the Panthers in Lowndes County did. But Guinea, they started their a positive action campaign. For the record, for people who don't know, that's what we call nonviolence in Africa, or called it during the anti-colonial resistance. So direct action. So you're talking boycotts, demonstrations, strikes, and marches. So they embarked on a 12-year positive action campaign, finally liberated Guinea from the clutches of French colonialism. But the first decision that Ahmed Sékou Touré makes as president of Guinea is to institute something called the People's Militia. He armed the entire nation.
Please let them know how they can get in contact with you.
With me? Oh, okay. Multiple ways. Thanks to you. The Twitter account is at JREGBUNA. Had it for a while now. At JREGBUNA. More accessible on Instagram at OBIEGBUNA15. The email, OBIEGBUNA15@gmail.com. And you can go to the Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company Facebook page if you are on Facebook. So we're spreading out for sure.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Brother Obi, as always. And I always end this with I am because we are, and I definitely wouldn't be me without you. So thank you, humbly.
Likewise.
No, grateful, and let's keep doing it. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are.